reconcile one person's story with another person's story about the same event? And how did you kind of approach doing that? Just to like present both sides, because I mean that's what you do, and then you're like, well, that kind of contradicts with so and so's recollection, but.
And here's the difference between me and a trained journalist, because I came out of this creative writing background. I like the ambiguity of those conflicting stories. You know, a journalist by training would have to follow up with their various sources and try to nail down what happened. Mm-hmm. And I like just kind of putting it there and you decide. You know, there's speculation over who played with R.E.M. that night of their debut performance. Mm-hmm. The side effects definitely played. But there's a big dispute over whether the third band was this band called the Swindles, mm-hmm. which was like a Athens version of the Sex Pistols, or a kind of jam band type thing called either Turtle Bay or Men in Trees, because it was called one thing and then the other. But and I have no idea. I have two pretty solid, trustworthy sources giving opposing information, and I just thought it was kind of neat to have that be a mystery. The thing with where R.E.M's name comes from, I don't know if you've read that section yet.
Whether it's that photographer's initials,
right?
Right.
So Ort was, at least when I first met Ort, and he was talking about this pretty rock solid on this idea that it was the initials R.E.M. were for Ralph Eugene Meatyard. Mm-hmm. He kind of hedged it a little bit when I reopened this with him, and he still believes that, but then it was more like, well, you know, it can stand for rapid eye movement, but Stipe was also really into photography and specifically about Meatyard, and you know, my understanding is that was kind of seen as icing on the cake. So, but that was kind of the same thing. Like, it's so neat, and actually, I find the Ralph Eugene Meatyard story pretty compelling and, mm-hmm. and fairly convincing. Actually, if you start looking at Meatyard's photography, but I didn't want to know for sure. I didn't want R.E.M. either to confirm it and say yes. That's the answer to the riddle. It's Ralph Eugene Meatyard. But I also didn't want them to say, no, that's Ort is completely wrong. Mm-hmm. That's not what it stands for. And perhaps now that story is out there, some other journalist will go and do that. But that's not on me. You know, right. Like I didn't do that. And I did have a line of communication tenuous at best, but I had a line of communication with the R.E.M. office, and so I probably could have put just that one question to them, mm-hmm. and say, can someone comment or respond back? Because I did get their assistance on something else I needed confirmation on, so I could have done that, and I just could not pull the trigger on that. I love the story so much. I love the mystery of it.
Yeah, there's something about that. I mean, yeah, not that it could be something kind of like that. In general, it seems like if you can get too specific, or if you get to end up knowing too much concrete information about an artist, then they can become less interesting.
Absolutely. And isn't the idea of the Rashomon quality of all this, isn't that completely in line with the MO of R.E.M. from the beginning?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think Elvis Costello said something about how much more he enjoyed R.E.M.'s music before he knew what they were saying.
Right.
You know, it's absolutely true, and that's also kind of hypocritical coming from somebody whose lyrics are so well documented. But you know, what are you going to do? It's true though. Because part of, especially the pre-Warner Brothers stuff, going back and listening and even trying to make out some of what Stipe is saying is an undertaking in and of itself. Mm-hmm. Something that's great for somebody who you know, at least when I had more time to do it in my my teens and 20s sitting there with an album and having the headphones on and really trying to study what was being sung or said, or you know, it's that was one of the great appeals of that band, was because nobody, you know, you could talk to another R.E.M. fan and they would be like, no, this is what he's saying, this, you know, it means this, you know.
I hope this, so this is an aspect of the book, and I hope people picked up on the humor of this, that I made several attempts to try to understand those lyrics, but also at the end I said, I mean, I don't even know if these are the correct lyrics, because none of those lyrics have ever been published. So I'm trying to like parse these lyrics that may not even be the real lyrics, and it's sort of a joke within a joke. But
and it makes it cool too, like those moments where you've got somebody's like hastily scribbled, you know, Stipe scribbling down what Gardening at Night was, you know, or even like the cool thing of having Mike Mills' handwritten lyrics for Don't Go Back to Rockville, you know. Those, so when you kind of like find that thing, to me it's like the joy of being a music collector to begin with, or at least what it can be and what it used to be before everything was available on streaming services, is that you could it was the hunt for it, the digging through things, and you know, having a record that you've been looking for years, or a CD that you've been looking for years, and then finding it mixed in somewhere, and then, you know, it's the euphoria of that kind of thing that can happen. And so when you get these like little reveals of what the lyrics like actually were, and even in the case of Gardening at Night, you know, that's what Stipe remembers at the time. Who knows if it's actually what it even initially was.
Yeah, I think this might be completely apocryphal, but I want to say that I heard or read somewhere at some point they had to write all the lyrics down, maybe to get them formally copyrighted or something, and I think it was kind of an on the spot thing, like what you said, like they might not even have been the real lyrics. He just sat down and wrote it all out so they could get that formal document or whatever. But
that's something that's interesting to me too, and I think one of the things that put them above some of their peers is how they organized it, knowing it was going to be a business from the beginning.
Yeah,
I mean, that's pretty exacting and forward thinking for you know, a bunch of, you know, young musicians in 1981, you know,
right.
But then I'm sure you've heard that one of my favorite things that R.E.M's ever officially released is that set of their rehearsal shows. I think it's
in Dublin.
The 39 song set. With
that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's great. And there's one part where, you know, Stipe had to look up the lyrics to something, and then saw something online when he was looking it up that, you know, these lyrics might not be, you know, what they actually are. Even Stipe doesn't know what the lyrics are.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. But that set is amazing. I probably, at least in recent years of listening to R.E.M., that's the one I probably go back to the most, because I think the performances on that are amazing.
And that is cool, because you were talking about with the later albums, they'd been around for a while. They didn't have the same drummer. You know, how much of that early sound can they recapture? And so it was interesting with that set, because they did so much of the older material, but it's very much, what year was that set? Was it?
I think those rehearsal shows were leading up to recording. I think it was Collapse Into Now.
Okay, so let's say 2000.
No, because Collapse Into Now was the last one. So what's the Accelerate? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So late 2000s. So they're not trying to play it as R.E.M. of, you know, if they could somehow like try to be exactly like R.E.M. in 1983, 1984, they're playing it as R.E.M. of the late 2000s, revisiting those songs. And so Stipe is actually enunciating. And so you hear the lyrics of Gardening at Night.
Yeah.
You know? His voice had changed, but they played those songs with conviction and a lot more precision than they probably had in their early days. And so it was really cool to hear them do it that way.
Well, I mean, because when you think about, I mean, that was to learn that a band that sounded like they did had a guitarist that had no idea how to play his instrument to start with, when they started out.
Yeah.
Clearly Peter Buck has become such an accomplished musician
for sure
since then.
Yeah.
But, so yeah, he can't play like that anymore.
Right.
You can't suddenly, after you've been playing an instrument for 40 years, you can't turn around and play it like you did when you didn't know how.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So have you listened to any of the Michael Stipe solo stuff that came out recently?
No, I haven't heard it. It's all live stuff, right?
Yeah, it is. I think it's just him and a accompanist on piano.
And is it all new material?
That's what I've heard. He has like 2-3 songs. He's been writing some stuff, so I'm a little hesitant to visit it. And it's interesting. They've all gone on and done so many different things. With the exception of Bill Berry, he quit music. Right? He just hasn't been really playing since. I think he played a couple of shows with them.
Yeah.
But I don't think he like went to the farm and did that.
It's hard to tell what he's been doing, but he does pop up on stage at the 40 Watt. In fact, Love Tractor just did a gig a month or two ago, and he got on stage with them. He was actually a member of Love Tractor for a while.
Yeah.
And he and his son got up on stage and played with them. So
that's cool.
He still knows all those people.
Yeah. You see Mills pop up in like the baseball project, or he'll do something here and there. And is there a project that Peter Buck says no to?
No.
He's on everything.
Yeah.
So, but it's what I don't know. Kind of as we're sort of wrapping up about this, I think. First of all, I highly recommend the book to anybody who is an R.E.M. fan and an R.E.M. fan still, because that era, they never were that again. And there's not really, if you look at the music, it was a unique way how they were incubated and how they kind of came up the way they did. I don't know. They have a really interesting kind of enigma surrounding them, and the fact that they're as well known for their personalities now as they were for their music. It's a great document to go back to and really look at the formative aspects of that. And so anyway.
Oh, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to thank you for sitting down and talking to me. And so do you have what does that look like for a book like this? Do you go and do readings places? Do you have are there places, do you go on a book tour? What do you kind of do with something like this?
It's been kind of me saying yes to opportunities that have come up, but not really planning a specific thing like a book tour. So there's been kind of a sort of a mini book tour by accident. There was Pat the Wiz's wife is involved in a charity called Artist to Artist, and they do all these benefits. Right now their big focus is on military veterans and PTSD, and providing service animals to the vets, which has been demonstrated to curb suicide rates a bit. And so they raise money for that. And Jean is Pat's wife, and she is just a very sweet, wonderful person, and we all kind of hit it off when I was working with them on the book. And so she said, "Would you like to partner with us for an event? We'll do it in Athens. We'll make it the release party if you want, and it would be great to get some kind of R.E.M. cover band." She had this whole vision, and so she put that all together, and it was like one of the greatest nights of my life. It was fantastic. So I took the whole family. We went down to Athens, and this was really surreal because this cover band, they're called Dead Letter Office, and they're amazing. They're from Western New York.
Huh.
They came down to do the gig. They were totally excited to be playing in Athens, and there had been kind of this unwritten rule that REM tribute bands